You're dangling in mid-air, 50 feet above a freezing waterfall. Your body shakes uncontrollably, your limbs are numb, and every breath feels heavier than the last. Above, your friends shout encouragement, but their words barely register. You know you're running out of time. What would you do? For Grant Lackenbach and Michael Pye, best friends and thrill seekers, this scenario wasn't just hypothetical. It became their final fight for survival. What began as a daring caving expedition turned into a nightmare of freezing water, tangled ropes, and desperate heroism. This is the haunting story of the Ellison's Cave tragedy, a tale of courage, brotherhood, and the merciless power of nature. Dreamers of adventure, Grant and Michael weren't your average university students. Grant, a 20-year-old sociology major, was charismatic and driven, someone who thrived on the thrill of new challenges. Michael, a fine arts student with a passion for music, was equally adventurous. Both were deeply connected by their shared Christian faith, an unshakable bond that saw them through daring escapades, from rock climbing to skydiving and now caving. Their shared motto? Face the unknown and conquer it. It wasn't their first time exploring caves. Just weeks earlier, the duo had successfully navigated another cavern, an experience that only fueled their confidence. Ellison's Cave, one of the deepest in North America, seemed like the next logical step in their journey. Ellison's Cave, beauty and danger, tucked into the rugged wilderness of Pigeon Mountain in Georgia. Ellison's Cave is both a geological marvel and a deadly challenge. Stretching over 1,000 feet deep, its winding passages and towering drops have lured adventurers for decades. At its heart lies the fantastic pit, a sheer drop of 586 feet, making it the deepest free-fall shaft in the United States. In winter, the cave transforms into a frigid underworld. Waterfalls roar through its depths, spraying ice-cold mist, while temperatures hover dangerously close to freezing. Even experienced cavers approach it with trepidation. The journey begins. On the morning of the 12th of February 2011, Grant, Michael, and 8 other students, 5 boys and 5 girls, set out for what they thought would be a thrilling day trip. Their enthusiasm was palpable. After all, they had driven over 400 miles from the University of Florida to get here. But in their excitement, the group made critical errors. Their clothing, shorts, t-shirts, and light jackets was entirely inappropriate for the cave's conditions. Worse, they left their phones behind in their vehicles, wanting to disconnect and focus on the adventure. "We'll be in and out in no time," one of them joked. The descent into darkness. After a grueling hike up Pigeon Mountain, the group reached the cave's narrow entrance. The jagged opening seemed more like the mouth of a monster than an invitation. But the thrill of exploration pulled them forward. Inside, the cave's beauty was spellbinding. Their headlamps illuminated stalactites and stalagmites, their intricate formations casting eerie shadows on the walls. The air was damp, and the sound of rushing water echoed through the chambers like whispers of the abyss. But the deeper they ventured, the colder it became. In summer, the cave's water pools remain at a chilly 13 degrees Celsius. 56 degrees Fahrenheit. In winter, they transform into icy death traps. The backpack that sparked a tragedy. As the group explored the cave, a sudden mishap changed everything. One of the students' backpacks slipped and tumbled into the warm-up pit, a 125-foot vertical shaft near the fantastic pit. The bag contained critical supplies, and the group hesitated. Could they afford to leave it behind? Grant, ever the leader, volunteered to retrieve it. His friends urged him not to go, sensing the danger, but he waved off their concerns. "I've got this," he said with a confident smile. He secured himself to a rope and began the descent, a dangerous descent. At first, Grant's descent seemed steady. His friends watched anxiously as his headlamp bobbed lower and lower into the abyss. But as he approached the halfway mark, disaster struck. The rope snagged on a jagged edge, halting his progress. Grant struggled to free himself, but his movements only made the rope tangle further. Worse, the freezing spray from a nearby waterfall began soaking him, sapping his body heat. Panic set in. Shivering violently, Grant shouted for help, his voice barely audible over the roaring water. Michael's heroic act. Michael didn't hesitate. Ignoring the warnings of his friends, he strapped into the same rope and descended after Grant. "Hang on, I'm coming for you!" he shouted. When Michael reached him, the situation was dire. Grant's body was trembling uncontrollably, his words slurred, a clear sign of severe hypothermia. Michael worked frantically to untangle the rope, but the freezing spray began to take its toll on him as well. Within minutes, his own body was succumbing to the cold. Above the abyss, above the pit, the rest of the group was in chaos. Some shouted words of encouragement down to their friends, while others scrambled back up the cave to seek help. The climb was brutal, but adrenaline pushed them forward. By the time they reached their vehicles and phoned emergency services, it was 2:19 p.m. hours had passed since Grant first descended into the pit. The rescue effort. The call mobilized the county cave and cliff rescue team, an elite group trained to handle such emergencies. Equipped with thermal suits, advanced climbing gear, and medical supplies, they arrived swiftly. But the challenges were immense. Inside the cave, the temperature was near freezing, and the descent to the warm-up pit was treacherous. Every second counted as hypothermia continued to drain Grant and Michael's strength. A race against time. When the rescuers finally reached the two friends at 3:30 p.m., they found a heartbreaking scene. Grant and Michael were lifeless, their bodies tangled in the very ropes that were meant to save them. Retrieving their bodies was a painstaking process. It took the team 6 hours to untangle the ropes and haul them back to the surface. By the time the operation was complete, it was 10 p.m., and the weight of the tragedy was overwhelming. The aftermath. The loss of Grant and Michael sent shockwaves through their university community. They weren't just adventurers, they were beloved friends, sons, and students with bright futures. Grant's family established the Grant Lackenbach Memorial Fund, offering scholarships to students in the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Michael, whose bravery touched everyone who heard his story, was posthumously awarded the Carnegie Medal for heroism. Their story is a stark reminder of the dangers of underestimating nature's power and the importance of preparation. Lessons from the abyss. Ellison's cave, with its haunting beauty and deadly pitfalls, stands as a silent witness to their tragedy. For thrill seekers, it's both an inspiration and a warning. Adventure demands respect for the elements, careful planning, and an unrelenting focus on safety. Grant and Michael's legacy endures, reminding us of the fragility of life and the strength of friendship.